Welcome to Tree Talking Time, where we talk all things tree dogs, from the smallest feists to the largest hounds, treating squirrels to bears and everything in between. And from time to time, we might even run a little fast game.
Hey, Ben, how are you? It's nice to finally get on here.
Yeah.
I know it was a hassle in the beginning, making our, getting the right times together to get together to do this thing, but we're here now.
Definitely.
So,
no,
yeah.
It's funny. I don't think people realize that sometimes that's a very difficult thing, even when you want to try and get something set up, that sometimes time zones and schedules and life just gets in the way, and it can be hard.
Right.
So.
Right. So anyway, I started with into big game hunting with cur dogs back east.
Mm-hmm.
I reside in Idaho now.
Okay.
And I'm pretty much strictly a coyote hunter.
Okay.
I breed almost every type of dog you can think of to catch coyotes.
I definitely want to touch on that a little bit, but like I said, the whole reason I did want to get you on here was you mentioned in another podcast that you bear hunted on the East Coast with curs, and I'm like, there's not a ton of guys that do that. So,
right.
And it's something I'm very interested in. As most of my listeners know, I'm a cur dog guy, but I want to be a bear hunter. I'm not a bear hunter. I'm a wannabe. I don't live where there's bears. So, but that's my goal. Eventually, to have a pack of cur bear dogs. So, when you said that, I was like, man, I need to talk to him.
Okay. Well, that started off, strangely enough. I read a book, and the book was called 44 Years, The Life of a Hunter by Meshack Browning.
Okay.
It was based on a gentleman that lived in the Maryland, Virginia area down there back in the early 1800s.
Okay.
And he basically was a dog hunter down there that used, let's see if I can get the cross. I can remember if the cross was correct. He used greyhound, foxhound, pit bull.
Okay. Interesting.
That's basically how he described it.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe they were half, he used greyhound, foxhound pit bull. And the dogs were half foxhound, and I think a quarter gray and a quarter bulldog.
Okay.
And but you can imagine then what the dogs were back, those three types of dogs back in the 1800s.
Oh,
you know, they were probably very raw.
Mm-hmm.
People didn't have a lot of time to, waste on dogs that didn't put meat on the table or fur up on the side of the cabin there. But
exactly,
he predominantly hunted bears and deer. He hunted anything, and back in those days there was even elk there. Yeah. So I read this book, and I became really interested in walk hunting because his name was Meshack Browning, and Meshack would take off with 3 or 4 dogs in his pack and go walk the mountains, probably Appalachia, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And, be gone for days and, catch bears and catch deer and, that's how he made his living in the beginning. And then he got a little bit more prosperous, but he was a dog hunter for sure by heart. I love that book.
Mm-hmm.
And that got me really interested in walk hunting and hiking and, hunting like he did for bears.
Yeah.
And I was a dog man, predominantly a terrier and sighthound. I hunted little terriers for fox, raccoons, and groundhogs back east. And my kill dogs were these lurchers that were basically a heavy dose of greyhound with some border collie or collie. And, so I started researching on what type of dogs to get to do this. Because I knew a couple bear hunters, but I really was, uh, um, I don't know, the hounds that they had, the plots, the blue ticks, the walkers and stuff. I wasn't about or take those on. I wanted more of a dog that hunted a little shorter,
Yeah.
and and the way it was explained to me, and that's how I came upon the curs in the end, is that they're the cur dogs basically on paper are going to shut a bear down fast,
Yeah.
and I didn't have a lot of space. I didn't have miles and miles and miles of you know mountains or land to hunt like I do now out here in Idaho.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and so um, I came upon these curs, and then with the curs, there's 1,000 different flavors,
There are.
and there were so many, and I was and I still am a newbie, a rookie when it comes to curs, but I really focused in on contacting people that hunted big game or hunted bears with these cur dogs, and I reached out to Daryl Fry
Yep.
out, out here
Hmm.
in Nevada, and Scott Rios, Cal Allen,
Yep.
and a couple other uh, you know guys that were were friends till this day.
Yeah.
I landed upon the striker line of uh, these cur dogs.
Yep. I tried to get
You know,
Daryl to get off one of those striker pups. I don't know, about a year and a half ago. He had a litter that was due off a striker semen. I said, "How much to get one of them?" He goes, "Yeah, none of them. These are going anywhere."
yeah, yeah, they're very hard to get.
Yep.
He lives about 2 hours from me right now, and I've been lucky enough to go down there and breed to several of his dogs,
Hmm.
um,
That's awesome.
and which really helped me out, and I was very lucky enough to get a couple shipped to me back east
Hmm.
when I was um, really going after those bears hard.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, so I made some contacts, and I got my first dog, and um, I didn't really know what I was doing. Um, I had hunted a lot with foxhounds, and I knew how to start a foxhound, or a coyote hound,
Yeah.
um, back east, and I kind of just used common sense, everything that I read, talked to people, and basically just put on my boots and started hiking, and put miles and miles and miles and miles and miles on that dog and me, walking up and down everything, trying to get in, and like just one day magically it just clicked, and the dog was next to me, and it was maybe around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, early spring. Was next to me, and the next thing I realized that he wasn't next to me, and way off in the distance I heard him barking, and I had an old tracking system on him, and I pinpointed where he was,
You
but
say
I
an
really didn't.
old tracking system, was that a beep beep or an early Garmin?
No, it was an old the tracker system that looked like a big TV remote,
Yep.
uh, with the antennas that folded off the top and the bottom,
Yep.
you know. And I whipped that out. That's what we used for the foxhounds. And I didn't really need it. I could hear him, and I just ran to him. And there he had a sow and two or three young cubs up a tree, and he was just running around the tree, had him bayed up, tree,
Nice.
and I couldn't believe it. And then from there, it was all downhill because it was. I put about um, in the next couple months, I put about maybe 25 bears on him,
There you
and he
go.
got better. And this, by the way, he was only about 8 months old.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah. And so what I did is I started taking him out with these lurchers I had, these sight hounds,
Okay.
and because he started getting better and better. And these lurchers, the minute they, figured out what was going on, and I told them, they were so smart, you could almost have conversations with them. And once they figured out what was going on, they would go back that cur dog up.
Oh, I'm sure.
And that's what he needed, because then we started not just getting into these, what do I say, marshmallow bears. You got some bears that would really, they didn't tolerate being harassed, by a single dog.
Yep.
And those, so that cur dog and those lurchers would put heavy, heavy pressure, and they ran silent, and until they could lay eyes on the bear.
Okay.
And then they would open up. And most of the time the races were very, very short.
Now, that's interesting that you say that a striker bred dog was silent, because when I talked to Daryl, he said his dog's open typically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting.
His Daryl's dogs, the way he explained it to me and his line of dogs, that he really, and I had some beautiful dogs and raised some beautiful pups. And I say that they're pups that I bred, but, I can't take, any, I can't claim the fame to him. I mean, Daryl and his family did all the hard work. But, at this time, when people had heard that I was getting into a lot of bears, I had another coyote buddy out in Illinois that coon hunted with a lot of cur dogs.
Yep.
And he goes, Shawn, I got a female out here that is going to be right up your alley. So that was a, mountain cur.
Okay.
Bred by from a gentleman that was bred off of really good dogs that he had, named Tim Cope. Yep. I believe Tim is down in North Carolina.
Yep.
I think, yeah. Tim and I are good buddies, and he sent. So I got this female called BB from my buddy Dan, and she was under a year old at the time, and but I know that Dan had gotten her right from Tim Cope.
Yeah.
And I started putting her on. Super athletic dog, super athlete, and a real train machine. And I think with the bears and the way we ran them back east, it was kind of like they did a lot of trailing. They didn't, like, unless it was blazing hot, they didn't open.
Yeah.
And they only opened in like maybe the last 100 yards or whatever, and whatnot. So I got her, so that made two. And then I got a third one that Daryl had bred a litter. Two litter mates had gone to a gentleman up in Wyoming named Shawn Wingard, I believe is how you say his last name. And Shawn hunted a lot of lion with those dogs.
Okay.
Taz and Malt, I believe, were their names. And Taz and Malt were bred together, brother and sister. And I had a dog named Ronan shipped out to me from Shawn in Montana back to New York. And that dog literally put me through hell for the first, till he got big enough to put a e-collar on.
Yeah.
I've never, to this day, I've owned a lot of dogs, Ben. And to this day, I've never had a dog bark like that. He barked nonstop. A light day for him was 12 hours of barking.
Yeah.
It was crazy. How thinking back, and I laughed because I would have never put up with it here. I would have got rid of them. I would have got rid of them here in Idaho in about 2 seconds. But I put up with it because they're those striker dogs were very hard to get.
Yeah. And
my idea was that he was a very inbred dog, off of Daryl's stuff, and that I was going to cross him onto BB and everything. And a lot of the knock against Daryl's dogs that I've heard, but it never bothered me, and it didn't. I was just like, hey, let's get them up the tree at any cost. It doesn't have to be pretty. Is that they treat a little loose,
Okay.
and with Tim's bloodline, they were hardcore competition
Yep.
coon dogs.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of people tell me that, um, you know, paperwork aside, which I didn't care about, is that this was a good thing that you were doing, putting these two together. And I had a litter. I'll talk about that later. But anyway, I raised Ronan, and Ronan I took him out coon hunting, and it was in the fall, and he caught one on the ground in a cornfield. And I've had a lot of dogs dispatch raccoons.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm sure with all those lurchers and the terrier
yeah,
experience that you've had.
lurchers, 90 pounds. Yeah. And I could not believe how efficient this dog was at, uh, you know, uh, uh, getting on a raccoon and finding one and getting it dead real quick.
Yeah.
And I was pretty impressed. Um, when he got big enough and I could get a collar on him, that toned down his barking and made him more livable. And
Sure.
but the end result is the first bear I ever got him on was a bad bear, bad one. Basically, it was chasing me through the woods.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it had cubs. It was in the spring and it had cubs, but I mean, those cubs had treed already, and then she just went right after those dogs, trying to kill all three of those cur dogs. My first one and BB and Ronan. The first one, by the way, was his name was Super Bad, and we called him Super. And anyway, Super, BB, and Ronan just basically almost got run off. I mean, they were very young at the time, and this bear was super aggressive. Probably in my mind, probably one of the most aggressive bears. And I'm not like, please, I don't want your audience or you to take it wrong. I'm not like a super bear hunter. This is just, what I did.
But you've been on a few, that's for sure.
Yeah. I've been, when it was all said and done, by the time I moved to Idaho, I'd been on probably about 250 bears or something like that. I could go out and tree 2 bears. I really tried 2 bears every time I went out, and I went out twice a week.
Oh wow!
Sometimes 3 times a week. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, and I almost never had a blank day. I hunted in a very, bear, it was bear rich environment. Anyway, this bear, he got on this, finally they put some pressure on this sow and she treed, and he just sat back there, and I have a picture of it, but he just sat back there and literally white foam was coming out of his mouth, and he just sat underneath that tree and was probably barking. I know people talk barks per minute, but I mean, it easily 60 barks per minute. I mean, he just was a natural tree dog and sat right there, hard, close.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Nice stay put dog.
Yeah, and that's where all the pain of raising him just, like, left my body. Because
sure.
now I say, oh, that's what it's for. Like, now I get it.
Yep.
So, but yeah, that's basically what that's how I got started and got into it.
Kind of going back to that book that you read about the foxhound, greyhound, bulldog crosses. Did it mention if they were silent on track?
Yeah.
I kind of figured.
Yeah.
I thought they would be.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. They were silent on track. They're probably, short range dogs, I would imagine.
Yeah. Oh, and in all reality, to look at one, if you were to make that cross today, It would probably look like a cur dog.
Yeah, if you used, if I was going to make that cross today, I wouldn't use a greyhound. I'd use an American staghound, which is a coyote dog,
Yeah.
and I'd breed that, to a bulldog, and then I'd have a male half cross, and I'd breed that to a really good, uh, I call it a foxhound, but it would be a coyote hound.
Okay.
What it would do, yeah. Or even a really good, big game hound.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But like I said, I just know seeing some crosses in the past. I mean, I've never seen that particular cross, but I would imagine that they would, like I said, look pretty much like majority of your cur dogs out there today. So,
Mm-hmm.
and
I
sounds like
basically, I have a coyote dog at my house right now. His name is Loss, Loss, and that's basically what he is.
okay.
It's just like your basic Meshack,
Okay.
Meshack Browning meat dog. But
How,
I use him. I use him on coyote. He's a really good coyote dog.
how so? How did you go about creating him? Or,
I had hunting coyotes out here in Idaho. People run them with side hounds. Not many people run scent hounds out here, but like they do back east. But
okay.
we run them. We were running with side hounds, and you can have a stag hound, or the farther south you go, they call them greyhounds, but they're not greyhounds. By no means.
Okay.
They just call them greyhounds.
Yeah.
There's a lot of greyhound guys used to hunt and still do hunt coyotes, but they would race the greyhounds and hunt their staghounds or crosses between the both.
Okay.
But we had a string up here in Idaho when I landed here in 2010. It was called a bull stag. So it was a basic staghound with some bulldog in it.
Okay. Yeah.
And we had a really, really good bull stag up here. Brother and sister, they're named Haas and T. They're bred by Scott Rios here in Mountain Home, Idaho, who was a big bear hunter and had hunted the mother on bear, who was half staghound, half bulldog.
Interesting.
Hunted her on bear up here in Idaho like crazy, and he bred her to a really good staghound, and had Haas and T. And I bred Haas. I acquired Haas and T from Scott, and had them, and I bred Haas to a really good uh, uh, coyote hound from the Midwest.
Okay.
And this female that I got, her father was notorious for getting kicked out. Was not welcome in any of those coyote pens, back east.
Yeah.
Because he would catch and kill coyotes in the pens there. Which,
Yeah.
Anyway, old Haas there, as he got older, started going. He was a joy to live with. I mean, easy to live with. But as he got older, he started turning into a real breed demon. I'm talking like 9 years old, 8 years old.
Oh, geez.
And he dug out of his pen one day and got to this female that was in heat. And I didn't know that he bred her.
Yeah.
And then literally she showed up bred, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting. We're going to, play a guessing game. And then when she had the puppies, they all came out looking like him.
At least it made it easy.
His color, yeah. And she had like 9 or 10 of them, and she raised them all. Great mother. Her name was Lisa. And I took those pups and put them into a big stock tank to wean them and get them on solid food. And I put them in my shop with the garage door open, and the stock tank, 300-gallon stock tanks in there. And a great horn owl, as I went to the house to go get the food, flew down and grabbed one of the puppies and flew off with it.
Oh, geez.
Can you believe that? Yeah. So that's a little side story on that litter. Anyway, I got down to about 2 of them, and they ran loose. I live out in the middle of nowhere in Idaho, and I took those dogs, and everything at my house now runs loose. So it starts getting in trouble. And they would go out and literally fight. At night they'd hear a coyote bark, they'd go right to it as pups.
Jeez.
And anyway, uh, that's where um, loss came from. That was loss I'm talking about. That
Nice.
that type of dog.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's the type of dog that I've never tried it, but I have very little doubts that you could take him and show him a bear once or twice, and he would go.
Yeah.
You know, would he be as good as some of the good bear hounds? I don't know. You know, but he would sure try.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
No, and some of that,
Yeah.
like you said about the guy Mishak, they needed a versatile meat dog. They needed a dog to put meat
Yeah.
on the table. What we do
Yeah.
today, you know, in the cold trailing and stuff, and with our GPSs, we hunt a very different style dog today than they did a couple hundred years ago. You needed a
Hmm.
dog that you could keep up with. You needed a dog that wasn't. I'm not saying couldn't trail, but you needed a dog that could put meat on the table. And you know, at the end of the day, a dog that cold trails all day long, or a hot nosed dog that is bumping something real quick and getting you some meat on the table. Which one are you going to pick? You're going to pick the hot
Yeah.
nosed dog that's putting meat on the table versus something that's going to pick the cold trail and stand on its head all day, picking away. So, just saying, it's a vastly different dog that a lot of guys hunt today than they did back then.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's 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 different. I mean, us as humans, we don't have the time. Um, if you have a family, and you have multiple kids, they have soccer, baseball, wrestling, football, gymnastics, dance. You're
yep,
running around, and you have it's very hard to hunt. Hunt hounds on. Listen, I have 4 hours on Saturday and go hunt a hound. Who knows if it's going to be 4 hours or you know, or 2 days, but
yep.
before you get the dog back with some of these guys. But those cur dogs back east that were very good, if they couldn't get that bear treat or they couldn't shut it down, they would just come back to me.
I was
Or
curious
more than likely, they'd go back to the truck and just sit there. But more than likely, they'd come hunting me and find me, and we'd go find another one.
now, like you said, this was all pre-Garmin, so I don't know if you're really going to know
Right.
this.
I did not use a Garmin.
Like, how far out do you think they hunted? Like, typically when you found them treed, like, just a rough guess, how far were they most of the time?
Half mile.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I hunted areas that had a lot of highways,
Yeah.
and I was told that here's the thing, everything I'm repeating I was told, and then I'll tell you that I was told, or this is what I was told or taught.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's gospel, or not that it goes that way, but like I was told that the curs can't smell such and such a trail, so they'll only take this with good conditions. The trails they're only going to take a trail that's 30 minutes old, or an hour old, or something like that. And I couldn't, so I couldn't take, I couldn't have a dog where I hunted that would grub up a 8-hour old track from the night before
Yep.
and take it 4 or 5 miles, 6 miles, across 6 different highways and everything. And so, and mainly I hunted 100% on foot.
Okay.
I did not use a vehicle, so I had to be able to keep up, on foot with them.
Yeah. Now, with saying you were hunting on foot, like an average day, how far did you typically go?
An average day was 10 miles.
Okay. So,
We do loops. I'd have a loop planned, like I'd hunt out this way, loop around, and then loop back to the truck.
okay.
Yeah.
It sounds a lot like I don't know if you're familiar with Alex. I can never say Alex's last name. He hunts Lycas, Khrushchev or
Hmm.
something. He's Russian and he hunts Lycas, and he lives in Northern Virginia, and he hunts some smaller pieces of ground like you're describing, and he hunts off foot, and his dogs hunt very similar to the way you're describing.
Hmm.
and he is very successful, but he puts a lot of miles in. Where
Yeah.
most, like most of the bear hunters that that hunt similar areas, they don't hunt the places he does because he hunts, like I said, the smaller places that are no road access,
Hmm.
and like I said, he's proven to be very successful. So
Yeah. If you're willing to walk and put the time in, you will make any type of dog you want. Bird dog, hound, cur, sighthound, terrier, anything.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. You just gotta. Yeah. There's no substitute. I mean, I cheat a little bit. I work a lot of hours, but I cheat a little bit because my dog, every pup on my place, no matter what type of pup it is, now today, runs loose
yeah,
and
that is
runs
a
loose
huge
and it runs it.
advantage.
Yeah, it runs into coyotes. My number one quarry today that I hunt are coyotes. And I have dogs that will go on the ground after one, chase one, you know, do any type of coyote dog that you can think of. I probably have at my house. So
Yeah,
used for coyotes, decoy dogs, and um, a big advantage is them getting to run loose. You know,
yeah,
and that knocks off the pressure off of me a little bit.
hmm
Um, of getting them started. Sometimes they're already well started and they've already shown themselves. You know, um,
oh yeah. No,
yeah,
trust me. If I live on the East Coast, I live in the Southeast Pennsylvania, so I
yeah,
I completely get where you came from, and if
yeah.
I was out there and I had the space, all my dogs would be running loose too.
Right, right, right.
What made
So,
what made you move out to Idaho?
um, my mentor um, wrote a column in the magazine Full Cry for years and years and years and years.
Hmm.
Uh, Her name was Teddy Moritz, and she's the one who got me into this dog hunting game. The disease that I have now that's affected me my whole life. But I used to live up the road from her over in New Jersey, and her and her husband ran a Boy Scout camp, and I'd
Okay.
go and we hunted together. And there was years there that we hunted together more than 4 days a week,
Oh wow.
and digging terriers. And she showed me a lot because her father was a German immigrant, and her father was a foxhound and a treehound guy.
Okay.
He loved it, and he put that fever into her like I've never seen. Uh, she's probably she's probably almost 70 years old. She's out hunting every day right now.
Oh wow. It's awesome.
But uh, we would go out and hunt terriers and sighthounds, and then we'd eat dinner and go out and hunt uh, coon hunt uh, with her dogs that night. And
Yeah.
treat. She had lurchers that treat coons as good as any cur I've ever seen, and squirrels during the day.
Interesting.
They it was just she put intense amount of time into them, and
Yeah.
she could take an average dog and make it great. She's gifted, yeah, and that so she showed me a lot. Also, by the way, that how to how we hunted because we used the same dogs that were drawing woodchucks out of the ground
Hmm.
during the day and dispatching them, and we'd use them to um, tree raccoons at night.
That's awesome. I, while I've heard of greyhounds and lurchers treeing, the only time I've ever heard of them treeing is like water race and field trial dogs.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
never heard of anybody actually putting the time into one to actually hunt.
yeah, yeah. Also, I've never answered your question. So she had these full cries sitting in her house. I used to look at the front uh, cover every day, and it's just these guys, down in Utah or Wyoming or Montana with hounds bait up, with a lion bait up on the cliff,
Yep.
and I was like, man, someday I'm going to move out there. And when the opportunity arose, I just jumped on it. I sold everything. I lived on a really nice farm, and I sold it and and packed up my 2 mules and 27 dogs and moved out to Idaho.
27 dogs, man.
Yeah, that was a journey. I don't advise, hauling 27 dogs and 2 mules from New York to Idaho ever. I don't, I don't, I don't encourage anybody to do that.
No, I can imagine that was quite the trip.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But
So,
but anyway, that's how I landed out here.
okay. That's awesome. And no, I mean, that I'm kind of in the same boat that I think it would be awesome to live out west. I don't think I'll ever make it out there, just family ties and everything, but I see the allure.
Right.
I definitely do.
Yeah. And when I got out here, Ben, here was the thing: I was so spoiled from where I hunted. Um, I knew a lot of people out here because I was buying dogs from people out here all the time.
Okay.
Not just I was buying a lot of stag hounds and stuff from people out here. And when I got out here, um, I went bear hunting a couple times, and I just didn't enjoy it like I did uh, with how I did it back east.
Okay.
I love the walk hunting, and uh, uh, I loved the one on one with the dogs and the walk hunting
Hmm.
and putting in the physical exertion. And let me tell you, you put the physical exertion in out here in the mountains, in the West for sure.
Oh yeah.
But it was like different. There's a lot more competition. You run into, sometimes you can run into five hunters and, you know, uh, five hunters, while you're hunting. And the other thing too is that these, um, dogs, so I brought all these dogs. I brought all these cur dogs from back east here now back to the west, and they just didn't do well.
Yeah.
They're used to a target rich environment,
Yep.
and they didn't understand like why uh, you know with why the hounds were taken off, and a bear out here, they'd hear a car door slam and they'd leave the country.
Yeah.
They put the running shoes on and they'd go uh, miles and miles and miles. And I don't know. I just never clicked with me. But I was coming out here to coyote hunt anyway,
Okay.
and and I uh, and so I just kind of phased right into that full steam.
Yeah.
So yeah, yep.
That's awesome though. Like I would love to get, like I said, to get some cur dogs and do some bear hunting with them. And actually, I have a young pup now, and that's kind of she'll be coon hunted a lot, just because that's what I have here
Mhm.
at the house. But I definitely do plan on showing her some bears and seeing how she does. But
Mhm.
like I said,
Yeah,
that's very interesting the way you described those dogs, and I think it's pretty cool what you did. And I only
yeah,
wish you were still out here doing it. I'd be up there hunting with you.
yeah, yeah. I when I landed out here, I had that dog Ronan. I told you that was the
Hmm.
very inbred Daryl Fry, Fry bred, striker bred dog,
Yeah.
and I crossed that onto Tim Cope's blood, and uh, I got a dog, and it went to a gentleman down here in the South Hills, which is like the below Twin Falls here in Idaho, and that dog became very, very, very uh, was a very famous dog. Uh, would stay out on a bear 8 hours running hard.
Yeah.
He was offered big money for that dog a couple times, on the mountain,
Hmm.
and he loved bears and he loved lions. I'm sure he's passed now. This is one of the first litters I did when I got out here,
Okay.
and yeah. So uh, when I got out here, I bred several litters and put them in government hunters' hands, because I had a lot of contacts, because, that's what Daryl did. So
Yep.
um, these guys would search me out and get dogs, and uh, they did well. They did, I knew I was doing the right thing, but I was making the right dogs for these people.
Yeah.
Oh,
heck yeah. I would have signed up for one of those pups. That's for sure.
Yeah. So now I take relatives of those dogs, those cur dogs, and I breed a terrier now. I call a truck terrier
Yes.
that I use. That basically is a smaller type cur dog.
I'm familiar with your truck terriers.
It does it. I'm sorry, what?
I said I'm familiar with your truck terriers. Even before your podcast with Chad, I had talked to a couple guys about them. I'd seen posting pictures of them, and I'm like, "What is that dog?" And they're like, "It's a truck terrier." I'm like, "What's a truck terrier?" And they're like, "It's a little bit of everything."
Yeah. It's a scientific, a very scientific, intense and scientific experiment out here in Idaho going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that. Even some of them have been bear hunting.
Okay.
Several bear hunting, lion hunting, lynx hunting,
cool.
Hog hunting on the Arizona Strip,
nice.
Which is it's not easy. Decoying coyotes, pulling coyotes out of culverts or out of den. Yeah, they're working out pretty well so far.
What's the average? What's the average size of one of those?
About 40 pounds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. In the 30 to 40 pounds.
Might have to try me one of them.
Yeah. Let me know when you're ready. I'll put one on a hauler for you.
Sounds good. No.
But that's about it, Ben. That's my cur dog story.
No, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about it. Like I said, it was when you like literally made like one sentence about it when you were talking to Chad and like glossed right over it. And I'm like, wait a minute, back this train up here. We need to dive into this because I'm very interested.
Yeah. It was, I miss absolutely nothing. I love Idaho. Yeah. I love it. And I miss absolutely nothing about the East Coast except their pizza and bear hunting. That's it. That's the only two things I'd ever go back for,
well, if you ever come back, look me up. I'm not too far.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I will.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, Ben. I'll be talking to you. Thank you.
Yep. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Tree Talking Media. And until next time, keep them talking in the timber.